Derbyites, we're here to talk about episodes 3 and 4 of Showtime's Twin Peaks revival. I'm here with Zach Laws and Charles Bright, and we have a lot to talk about. I'm going to you straight away, Charles. Initial reactions to episodes 3 and 4.
I think my initial reaction after I finished episode 4 was wondering if the real mystery of this season of Twin Peaks is what in God's name is any of this about, which, in all fairness, like we talked this over last week, Zach, about Inland Empire, how you gave up after 45 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm surprised you made it that long. I kind of see where this is going, but the real irony here is that we've had 4 episodes and roughly not even 10% of it has actually taken place in Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
And the one character who, anything else could happen, but we rely on him. None of those of Dale Cooper, none of those personality traits that we love are there.
None. It's different. They're different people, and we'll go into that in a minute. Zach, initial reactions to episodes 3 and 4.
Well, I mean, I am still incredibly captivated and intrigued by it. I'm definitely. One of the reasons I gave up 45 minutes into Inland Empire was that it started to bore me, and this is nothing. This is anything but boring. But yeah, I mean, especially in that 3rd episode, I found myself saying a lot, what the bleep is going on here? I don't know if we have any children watching this or not, so I'll watch my language. But
if we do have children watching, we have to ask their parents, why in God's name are you letting your kids watch this show and see recaps about it?
What are you doing? Call child care services immediately.
I'm just, I mean, yeah. And what's so fascinating about this show, as you mentioned, Charlie, maybe like 10% of this has actually taken place in Twin Peaks. Very little of it in the 3rd episode, especially. But it's fascinating watching how he's not given into nostalgia just yet. I mean, it was in the 4th episode, I think, where we got the most kind of Twin Peaksy stuff, where even using music from the original show in a certain scene and calling back to Laura Palmer's murder. And but yeah, I mean, it's just fascinating. I wonder if, fans of diehard fans of Twin Peaks are thinking of this.
Yeah, I know. And the nostalgia is really lovely, but I'm actually, when it goes to Twin Peaks and we're with the sheriff and, and Andy and those characters that we do love, I am not as into it at the moment as I am when we're in wherever the hell Cooper was in the beginning of episode 3 in New York City and South Dakota and God knows where else Evil Coop is now. All those things I'm really into, very, very much, desperately trying to work out what the hell is happening. But yeah, when I was on the couch, I watched episode 4 last night, and I sat there and just said out loud, "What is going on?" I'm getting very frustrated, but in a good way. I'm loving it, but I want to know more. So,
and to be fair, I will keep on watching. I am going to keep on watching. It's still just like I had prepared myself, as I said last week. I prepared myself for that it would be this kind of thing, because that's kind of what David Lynch has been doing in his movies and his material for the past couple decades. So I was prepared for it to be this, and now it's still just all hitting me.
What's interesting though too is like thinking back as you're watching it, like it kind of makes a lot of sense in some ways. Like you're able to follow it, even though what's going on is totally batshit crazy.
Yeah.
You're still kind of like, oh, okay, that's where this is going. All right, I can kind of see. It's like Mulholland Drive, where there's kind of a story there that you're following, and you think, all right, if I keep up, I'm gonna unravel the mystery of it, and then you realize that there's not actually a mystery of it. The experience of it is what you're watching it for.
Can I run a theory by you guys? Or maybe it's not so much a theory, or as everyone else is clued into this, and I just think I'm the only one who has. But have you basically put together that what we see, like the Cooper that we see it with Dale, with what's his name, Gordon Cole and Albert Rosenfield is a future thing, and everything else that's going on with him in the suit and shorter haircut when he gets out of the Red Room is like a flashback.
Wow.
I didn't even think about that, Charlie. Wow.
Because that's what I'm thinking it is. I think it's going to be something that just meets up in the middle.
Okay. Well, that would be cool, because at the moment they seem to be tangentially not quite the same. They're just going off on their own little tangents, and I don't know how they relate at the moment. That's a very good theory. I think you should continue with that theory until it's debunked or until you are proven right.
I'll keep it up with my erotic fan fiction.
Don't drop the erotic fan fiction. It's got such a following.
No, you're gonna have to pay for that, man. I gotta make a living.
You've got to eat, so yeah.
That makes me want to go back and rewatch these again, just to see how that theory works out.
One other thing, though, is like, were you kind of expecting? So we also got Naomi Watts here as
Lovely.
Dougie Jones's wife, and were any of you half expecting, like, okay, so after the whole him wandering around upstairs and then acting goofy with the pancakes, when she gave him a cup of coffee, were any of you like half expecting like coffee, damn fine coffee, and it just all just like comes flooding back to him?
Yeah, no, my roommates and I were sitting there and we said, when is he going to snap out of this? And then she gives him the coffee and we're like, here it is, it's going to happen. And then he like spits it out. And he's got it all over his teeth. And
it's lovely. So let's talk about episode 3 for a little while before we move into episode 4, because they're so different, aren't they? They're completely different in terms of their aesthetic and what they're dealing with. Episode 3 opens up with Coop falling through the abyss, so to speak, and then he's on a balcony. And I'm just reading my notes because it's otherwise I just cannot possibly approximate what the hell we saw. Then he's in a weird reddish room with an eyeless woman. Then he ends up in space. Now he goes through the wall panel, and then the woman pulls a lever and is electrocuted and hurled out into the abyss, and he's in space. And then I've forgotten the name of the character. The big face comes along and says Blue Rose. And then Evil Coop has a car accident.
Major Briggs.
Major Briggs.
The face of Major Briggs.
Major Briggs says Blue Rose, and then Coop gets sucked into a wall panel, and then Evil Coop has a car accident, a really cool, excellently directed car accident. Then there's a lot of vomiting, and then he's in the casino, and pretty much the episode kind of pretty much ends slightly after that. Okay, that's a very bad description of what we saw, but I think I want to talk about highlights and something that Zach said last week, which really stuck with me, because I was kind of thinking, why are we seeing Cooper and the others walk through all those red curtain corridors? And Zach, you quite rightly said that this show and many other Lynch projects are such visceral representations of what dreams feel like, or the dream state. Now, could there have been a more amazing approximation of what a dream feels like than this episode? Really, I mean, I was blown away by the beginning of this episode.
Like watching a nightmare unfold in front of you, but especially when that eyeless woman comes up and she's like speaking in I guess you could call it gibberish. Like you and everything is kind of echoey and faint, you know, and you can't quite hear what's going on. And it just like proceeds in this way where you're like, what is going on here? But again, it makes total sense as it's going along that, okay, he's got to go up there and work on this thing in outer space. And, like he'd totally be in this room that is that small in space. But when he goes back down into it, it's completely expansive. I mean, it's just, I don't know quite how to explain it, and I don't know quite what it means, but I'm riveted by it.
Yeah. It was very riveting and had that dream feel to it. I wonder if when you saw the eyeless woman, the first thing I thought to myself was, oh my God, that looks just like Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a very good idea.
Also, there's a second woman in that moment too. And I don't know. Do we know who she is at all? Or
I couldn't work it out. The fireplace woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, couldn't work it out at all. I thought it was the eyeless woman at first, but it's not.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the eyeless woman.
It could be. It could be, with her eyes back in. I don't know, but I'm at a loss for words. But I just want to like reiterate that whole sequence from the moment he's falling to the moment he's in the casino. So the whole dream sequence, like very little dialogue, like it was so unnerving because there was a lot of stuttering and a lot of like the images were very I don't even know how to describe it. I'm completely lost for words, but it felt like a nightmare, and it felt exactly like what some of my nightmares have felt like, where it's inexplicable and yet you're going somewhere that you're expecting to go. It's just so hard to explain. I've never seen anything like it ever, and I'm so impressed, so impressed with this one. And I sound like an idiot fanboy, but I just being honest.
It's interesting that you mentioned last week that that you admired, especially the photography of Mulholland Drive, because this is actually shot by the same guy, Peter Deming.
Right. Wow, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
I think he's beautiful. Lynch's go-to guy now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I don't know if there's really much that we can say about the whole sequence, but then when we get to Evil Coop and he has the car accident, anyone want to comment on that?
Well, like you said, I mean, it's very well done, and I'm wondering with him and what's that guy, Dougie, who is another Kyle MacLachlan doppelganger.
Yeah,
that weird fluid that they're vomiting out.
Yeah, what's that?
Do we know what that is? Is that just?
That's in Fire Walk with Me. I think they call it a garmonbenzia or something like that.
Right. Garbon. Yeah.
What is it? What is it supposed to be? No idea.
I don't know, but it looks a lot like cream corn, and that means my Thanksgiving is going to be very awkward.
Yeah, it's ruined.
I just watched that movie too, so I should know right off the top of my head what it is. It's something like the good and the bad, something like that.
Right.
I don't.
Like a manifestation of the soul or something.
Right. I do remember there's a shot in Fire Walk with Me where it's very close on. I think it's Michael Anderson's mouth, but you can't really tell, and he's just like slowly slurping up creamed corn. So maybe that's the Garbon. Trying to pronounce it. He says it backwards, and then it's played forwards in the movie anyway. So,
yeah, I love how they speak backwards in the Red Room, by the way, and anywhere else. I just think that is so cool. Any other show that ever does that, it's just completely derivative because that's a Lynch Twin Peaks thing. I think I could be wrong. Say it in the comments if I'm completely wrong. And then basically he goes to the casino and just starts hitting the jackpot over and over again. And I was trying really hard to use my very tiny brain to work out what that meant and what was I supposed to read into that, and I wasn't getting much. So I'm hoping that one of you might have some ideas.
I think it has to do with coming from where he's been. I think, coming from that sort of alternate dimension, and he just has like this magic touch, or he's able to sense something with them because he sees an image of the Red Room above each slot machine before he plays it and wins.
Yeah. Okay.
And also creepy grandma.
I love creepy grandma.
Hey, the nut jumper.
Although by the end I was like, okay, good for you. When she goes, "Thank you, Mr. Jackpot," I'm like, okay, good for you. You do you, honey.
You do.
We should, just give some props to Kyle MacLachlan for, being able to give a performance like that, where it's so fascinating watching Dale Cooper basically reacclimate himself to the world after being in this alternate dimension for 25 years. I think we all assumed that once he got out, he would just be right back to, good old Dale Coop, and he's just having to relearn what the world is like, and it's not an easy thing to do as an actor to, I guess, generate empathy while playing I don't want to say stupid, but he's almost act like a baby in some instances.
Yeah, so he doesn't say a lot, and he seems like I mean, I can't think of the phrase, but in Australia we would call that a stunned mullet. It's just completely not. He doesn't have his wits about him. But then
Infantile, I think would be the word.
Yeah, that's it. But then, so he assumes the Dougie Jones identity. Is that from the outset, from the moment he's out into the real world, or is that now another doppelganger that has forked off? So now we have 3 of them. I'm not quite sure.
See, that's why I think that it's a meetup in the middle thing, because I was at first going, wait, there are 3 of them now, so there's Coop and 2 versions of Dougie Jones.
Yeah.
But I think it's a flash forward and flashback.
That would be very cool. I'm gonna have to think about that. I might watch it again, because that would actually make a lot of sense. I hope we're onto something there, Charlie. You can have full credit on that. So then when we see Naomi Watts, that was really great, because it just harkened back to my very fond memories of Mulholland Drive. And but she's scolding Dougie the whole time, and then I finally, it hit me. Okay, so he is playing this Dougie Jones infantile character, and they're probably seeing him as a child, I assume. But yeah, then I started kind of losing it a little in those scenes until we got to the stuff where David Lynch himself appears. So Zach, what do you want to say about the Dougie Jones stuff? Anything at all come to mind?
Well, I'm guessing that part of her frustration with Dougie comes from, we're assuming that Dougie is a person who's been around for a while. Because we see him in that scene with the prostitute right before he vomits the, garbanzia. And he's obviously, we can tell from that scene where there's the guys who were following him and trying to shoot Dale Cooper, thinking that it's Dougie Jones. Remember from we know that he's got people following him, and we know when he brings home that big bag of money, and his wife Naomi Watts says, "All of our problems are solved." So you think, okay, he must be in deep with whoever's trying to kill him. So I'm guessing that a lot of her frustration comes more from what we can piece together about about who Dougie Jones is. And Cooper's just, I think he assumes the identity because everything that he says is just parroting what other people are saying. When he's going around to the casino saying, "Call for help," it's what the prostitute told him to do,
Yeah.
And so I think that just he's kind of, he assumes the Dougie Jones role just because that's what he's been parroting, that's what people have said to him.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's my theory.
Okay. And then the episode for me, and I think you guys probably agree, that it really ramps up and becomes so riveting once we see FBI agent Gordon Cole reappears with his extremely loud and annoying voice. And then
it's not as loud as it used to be, though.
Not as yeah, good point.
Because he has better hearing aids now.
Yeah, it's technology. David Duchovny is back as Denise Bryson. And they appear to have been looking for Cooper for some time, and they think they've found him. Although we then realize they've found Evil Coop, who is in jail. And that whole storyline just had me on the edge of my seat. And there's really not much to it, but I don't know why, just so riveted. And then when they go to interview or see Evil Coop and the screens go up, I thought that was one of the creepiest things I've ever seen. And it was nothing. And just testament to the direction and to Kyle MacLachlan's performance as Evil Coop. I'm stunned. I thought it was amazing. And it sounds like hyperbole, but I really was just completely into it. Charlie.
When David Duchovny walked into that room, I was cheering so big. I was like, yes, Denise is back. Oh, I was so happy. And part of me is just like, okay, because you also forgot Miguel Ferrer in one of his last appearances. He passed away back in January, I think it was, as Albert Rosenfield, who became one of my favorite characters on Twin Peaks. And I just wish Miguel Ferrer was still alive, because I want a spin-off series after this of a procedural direct done by Brian Fuller, where Miguel Ferrer and David Lynch go around solving mysteries all over the country.
I would so watch that.
And David Duchovny as Denise Bryson as their hard ass supervisor. That's what I want.
No, those scenes are
That's all I want in this world.
Yeah, those scenes are so great. I mean, first of all, I mean, it's playing off of our memories and nostalgia from the original Twin Peaks. So, of course, it's like, great, there's Gordon Cole and Albert Rosenfield and Denise, you know, yay, they're back. But again, what David Lynch is doing here is so interesting, where he's taking these characters who you're familiar with, and he's basically telling an entirely new story that in an interesting new way as well. You know, and that last, I think about that last, I think it's the last scene of the episode, right before we get to the credits. I guess the running theme of the credits of the show are going to be musical performances in the Bang Bang Club. But where he turns his hearing device all the way up, and he's like, Albert, about, I don't feel right. I don't think this is Coop. What are we going to do? That, for me, was one of the best endings of the episodes that we've seen so far.
Yeah. Really, he says, Albert, I hate to admit this, but I don't understand this situation at all, which made me laugh out loud, because I'm like, no shit. I don't understand.
Well, what's even crazier about that is it's played by the guy who wrote the damn thing.
Gold. Absolute freaking gold. Yeah, so then
I don't know if that is Lynch being incredibly meta, because I don't know if his mind is capable of that, but I'm still just like, that put my mind in overdrive.
Who do we think? Who do we think? Because at the end he mentions finding someone who was close to Dale Cooper, and he asks Albert where she is, and Albert says, "I know where she drinks." Is he talking about Annie, Heather Graham, or who do we think he's talking about?
I don't know.
Annie seems to be the one that makes the most sense, but Heather Graham was not listed in the press release where they literally listed at the entire, like, over 150 people that were going to be in this. Heather Graham wasn't on there, and maybe it's a surprise, which would be an awesome reveal. But
why would they bother, like, making that one a surprise? Do you think it would be worth the surprise?
I don't know.
The other possibility that it would make sense would be Audrey Horne, who is in the cast list, and we haven't seen yet, and who actually, I mean, in that going back to the third episode, in that moment where we see the second woman and she's got her back to us. At first, I thought that was Audrey.
Yeah, me too.
I did too.
And so I'm thinking, at first I thought it was Audrey, because we know that she's coming back. So, but I guess that'll be revealed soon.
It could have to do with my guess, because remember at the end of the second season, she had handcuffed herself in that bank vault that blows up and presumably kills Andrew. And well, it absolutely did kill what's his name, Pete, because unfortunately the actual actor passed away.
Jack Nance.
So maybe she was, like, horribly injured and became incredibly depressed after that, and just became a raging alcoholic.
Maybe. So okay.
I'm looking forward to.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say I'm looking forward. Audrey Horne was always my favorite character, and the one I had the biggest crush on in the show. So
yeah.
By the way, I mean, we should talk about the Robert Forster as Sheriff Truman. What did we think about him?
Wonderful.
I love him.
Great casting.
He's wonderful at giving great understated performances where he can convey a lot by doing very little, and we've seen that especially in Jackie Brown, which he deservedly got nominated for an Oscar for. But also in recent years we saw that with The Descendants and Breaking Bad too, in that second to last episode, which he was so great in.
He was. I thought he was going to win an Emmy for that. So let's just wrap up by talking about the rest of that episode where we're back in Twin Peaks. We get our first proper glimpse or scenes with Dana Ashbrook as Bobby. He's aged really well. It looks like they've taken off his mop hair and put on the white hair and just given him a little bit of old people makeup. Because he just looks really good.
I think that that white hair, I think, is his actual hair.
Yeah, it probably is, but that's what it just looks like. He hasn't really aged that much since he was, the heartthrob from the first series. Lucy and Andy. Lucy gets very upset at seeing Sheriff Truman. I didn't quite get that. I could have maybe had just my attention had lapsed slightly, so I missed that. So we'll talk about that in a sec. Bobby walks in and bawls his eyes out when he sees a photo of Laura Palmer, and that was like David Lynch really wanted to focus in on that. So I think that's important. And then, of course, we get Michael Cera as Wally, and I've got my thoughts about him. I thought that was miscast. I really did. It took me completely out of it. I just kept thinking that's Michael Cera. So anyway,
doing a Brando impression.
Yeah, I thought it was just
like
terrible.
What was that?
Well, there's your, David Lynch has this playful pop culture side. I mean, let's not forget this is the guy that made Wild at Heart, where Nicolas Cage played Elvis Presley, basically. So I mean, that's. I liked that scene more for just how Robert Forster reacted to him.
Yeah.
Doing this like ridiculous. I mean, first of all, Michael Cera is probably the most ridiculous person in the world to play Marlon Brando circa the Wild One. And so maybe that was a bit of stunt casting on David Lynch's part. Just, but
I can imagine him going to the network, going to Showtime, and go, "I want to put in a Brando impression, but by someone who should not do one."
That's gone.
I'm just like, when I saw that, I was like, I almost, because I was watching it, and I almost just said, "I'm done."
Yeah,
I almost,
me too. I can't do this. I can't do this.
I didn't, but I really was that close to doing it. But on the other hand, it does kind of make sense that Lucy and Andy would produce Michael Cera. It actually, that makes sense.
Oh, that's good. I love it. He's so
By the
right.
way, I love how
I'm feeling better.
Yeah. I love how Andy has, we were speaking about Bobby's hair earlier, and I love how Andy has basically the same haircut as he did in the original, only more of a bald spot in the back. And
yeah.
It's like, what was I going to say? About Lucy getting upset about Sheriff Truman. I think it seems that Lucy has not gotten used to the idea of cell phones because she still uses her desk phone. And so she did not realize that Sheriff Truman was walking and talking at the same time. A little bit silly to think maybe she wouldn't understand that. But then again, I mean, if you think about who Lucy was throughout the original run of Twin Peaks, it makes perfect sense for her character. And I love how, even though it is kind of stupid, Andy just, accepts it and encourages her to overcome her fear of cell phones. I thought that was really sweet between the two of them.
They are sweet. So anyone have any theories about this Bobby crying thing? Is it just because he's reminded of the trauma of years and years ago? Is that it?
Yeah,
I think it's probably just him. He hasn't thought about it in a while. And remember, because at the time that Laura was killed, he was cheating on her and she was cheating on him.
Yeah.
So, I think, and we never actually really saw him grieve.
True.
If I remember correctly, we never actually saw him grieve. So I think it's, like now he's an actual police officer. So he's having to see that. And also because if we saw on the desk, not up front and center, but on the side when they had the bird's eye view of the desk, you could see the photo of Laura Palmer from the crime scene. So I think that's something that we're actually getting to see, because I think he's trying to portray Bobby as a more sympathetic character than he was during the original run.
Also, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. We caught a glimpse of James and Shelley Johnson at the end of episode 2, but we haven't really delved into where they are now necessarily. I mean, we know that James had a motorcycle accident, but that's about as much, and that Shelley has a daughter, but that's as much information as we've got so far. It's going to be interesting to see how these, actors who are now 50 years old portray these characters who were teenagers during the original run and still in high school. So, what has time done to their characters?
Yeah.
Well, I will say that Dana Ashbrook has aged very gracefully.
Yeah.
I see. The weird thing is, actually, when I first watched Twin Peaks, I thought James Marshall was really sexy, and I was just not into Dana Ashbrook, and now it's just completely reversed. I'm just like, Dana, you got that Silver Fox thing going. I'm liking it.
That's the beauty of these revivals. We get to see all these actors that we loved and cherished years ago, and how time has ravaged them. And we're going to see that on Roseanne, and we've seen it on a whole other bunch of revivals, and this especially. Some of them look really great, some of them not so much. Like, Kyle MacLachlan, he's aged really well. He looks great. Probably not so much when he's playing Evil Coop, but yeah, I think that's the cool thing about revivals. Anyway, final thoughts, because I just love these. I can't wait for the next one.
Before we go, I wanted to ask you guys something. What's going on with Dr. Lawrence Jacoby with those shovels?
Oh,
so you see him in the first.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, because they're so brief. We see him in the first episode. He's like the first thing we see, basically, when we.
Yeah, and if it weren't for the trademark sunglasses, what is it, purple and red sunglasses?
Yeah,
we would probably not have recognized it as Russ Tamblyn as Dr. Jacoby.
And then we've got this long sequence in episode 3 where he's just spray painting these shovels gold. Like, what is this leading up to?
At first, I thought he was like trying to build Lynch the Oscar he's never won, but or considering this, maybe somehow the Emmy that he never won.
Yeah,
but
right.
Still, it was so bizarre and random. But and the thing with the thing with Lynch is that we don't know if we're going to get a payoff for that. We don't know, and so that's part of the intriguing thing about keep on watching it is, all the weird stuff that we see, you never know if there's going to be a payoff. Sometimes you just got to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, I have no idea either. And you know what? Maybe next week we might have a quick chat about Emmys. This is not eligible, obviously, for this season's Emmys. It's eligible next season. I did some research on what it was nominated for in 1990, 1991. It got a lot of nominations, only won 2, sound editing and costumes. But anyway, we'll talk more about Emmys next week, because I think we've probably talked enough. That was amazing. Loved it. Can't wait for more. Thank you, Showtime. Thank you, guys.
We've had more dialogue here than the entire first 4 hours.
Correct. Love it. Love it. Love it. See you guys.
Bye, guys.